which proposes purposes, we have to have a sovereignty of a divine power established in wisdom, love, and strength, upon which we can depend if we are worthy. But that this power will not break its own laws to give us comfort and pleasure when we're wrong. The presence of a divine principle justifies the realization that life is significant, and that life is something we shouldn't waste, that life is not fulfilled by simply going to school, raising a family, having a job, and dying. Life is a series of adventures, of experiences, and every moment of life should be lived, not thrown away. Among older people especially, this sort of waiting for the end and making the journey as comfortable as possible is a mistake. These people should be doing things that they have not done, but which should be done. If they have been in business, if they've had various responsibilities, they should go into opposite areas and develop new talents, new abilities, new courage, new interests. And where they do this, they have a wonderful time, because I know many that have done it. This, therefore, is the realization that we are here for a reason. And we are here to prove our own growth, improve ourselves, and contribute to mutual benefit for society. Having decided in our own minds that we're here for a reason, then we each have to decide what the reason is. Now, each person probably has a little different reason for being here. We all are here because of previous activities. We are paying old debts and making new ones. We are going through all kinds of experiences due to faculty specialization in our own mind. Therefore, we have our own reasons for what we do. But there is no just reason for doing nothing. There is no reason by which wasting time can be justified. Time is an opportunity to strengthen either the strength that we have or create new strength where we had weakness. Time is an opportunity to grow, and all growth is measured in time. And to waste time is to waste life. So we try to find ways to make life interesting. And by interesting, we mean that it must have a varied pattern. It must be composed of circumstances which we can look forward to, changes that are benevolent and useful. So to build a plan with a future that is going to be fulfilled to our own contentment and progress, this type of thinking is very valuable. Actually, therefore, in philosophy, we gain the courage to recognize that the divine power within us is going to be rationalized into conduct, and that this power has within itself two tremendous factors. One is the power of life, and the other is the power of death. Wherever life is abused, death is hastened. Wherever life is improved, the probabilities of life being lengthened are good. And those to whom the lengthening of life may not be the final answer will find that self-improvement goes with them beyond the grave. Whatever progress we make is permanent and builds into our eternal natures. Time we waste is meaningless. It is simply a delaying of the maturing of our own lives. And very few people need that kind of delay. What we've got to do is to correct it. So with philosophy, we begin to understand the reasons for things. We justify right, we prove why it is right. If we say to someone, I believe in kindness, we can say, I believe in it because of the Bible. I believe it because Christ taught us to be kind, or other world teachers have taught us to be kind. But we can also approach it philosophically. We can prove with very little effort that kindness is one of the most powerful assets towards a useful, happy, well-adjusted life. That kindness is not only a spiritual virtue, it is a philosophically demonstrable asset in daily living. Wherever unkindness develops, something is lost, something is destroyed. Cruelty is a destroyer. And among the cruelties are criticism, condemnation, gossip, and all these destroying things. On the other hand, the kindness factor gives us a tremendous increase of acceptabilities. Our friends will be more happy with us. We will find more cheerfulness and calmness and beauty in life, because what we have ourselves, what we radiate, also affects like a light the environment in which we live. Now we come down to one of the most common and practical problems of all, and that is the effect of all these activities upon personal health. We are all desirous to be as well as possible for the span of time we are here. And we also know that there are cases in which a miserable character temperament can go on to be 110 years old. We cannot say always that the good die young. We cannot say that the evil all die young. But we can say with certainty that wherever evil conditions exist, the individual may be still physically alive, but he is dead as far as values are concerned. He is like the man of whom it was said, he was dead, but he did not know enough to lie down. Anyone whose life is destructive, critical, and is contributing nothing to the common good is already dead. And nature is going to work on him. Nature will produce a whole series of psychological ailments that are peculiar to persons with poor dispositions. These psychological ailments are fretfulness and irritation, criticism, condemnation. All of these elements all add up to a neurosis. And a neurosis is something that can be diagnosed. A neurosis, however, can never be successfully cured by medication. Why? Because the use of medication is an artificial means of trying to accomplish what the person should do himself. Nearly all hypnotic drugs and sedations attempt to substitute for an individual who is unable to be quiet of his own accord, who is unable to be patient or to clear his mind of problems which perhaps are not very real at best. But drugs cannot do this. They numb or dumb the quality for a moment, but they also destroy the life in the end. So the person who is inclined to sedation will find tranquility resulting from faith and affection, the best of all tranquilizers. He will find that when he is at peace with himself, he will not require neurotic pressure ailment treatments. He will be able to live his own life in a quiet and peaceful way. As he goes along, of course, a cranky disposition and the loss of friends and all this type of thing can gradually undermine the normal, pleasant pleasures of life. They can hasten attitudes or conduct patterns which will produce sickness. They will also have a tendency to lower blood pressure, in some cases to a dangerous point. They will destroy and imbalance the endocrine system, and they will make marked destructive changes in blood chemistries and body functions. The nasty disposition is murderous, but instead of murdering other people, it is murdering itself. So everyone who has faults and criticisms and condemnations lurking in their nature will do well to try to root these things out by using the mind not to deny the existence of these conditions, but to transmute them into experience growth. Every fault is a lesson that must be learned. When learned, that lesson advances the eternal nature of the person. Every victory over the limitations or corruptions of nature are recorded or is recorded in the permanent pattern of man's achievement. Therefore, try to balance off, try to increase activities and interests. One reason people come to me and tell me about is that those who live too small a life are the ones who gradually develop most of the unpleasant infirmities. And very often they are defending these infirmities. They are making certain that people realize that these narrow lives are, in a mysterious way, especially blessed. There's something wonderful about being a neurotic. And sometimes other people really accept it as wonderful. But it may be a victory of the morbid over the normal, but it does not add anything to the permanent character of the person. Anyone who has a tendency to exaggerate the desire to escape contact with society is doing so because of ignorance. They do not understand society. Also, these people who don't understand are the ones that very often pass judgment upon everything. A person who has never done anything themselves always gives hearty advice to everyone else, and advises things that have never been tried and won't work, because they do not arise from experience but from prejudice. So a person who retires into themselves because of prejudice against worldliness is in trouble. It is far better for a person who is really religiously inclined to get out and work with constructive activities. According to the good book, the Lord created the world in 6 days, and on the seventh day He rested. Now, according to our way of thinking, the works of the world are done in 6 days, and on the seventh day we are all supposed to rest. Of course, under the present tensions, there's very little rest on the Sabbath. But at the same time, it is assumed that the seventh day is a day of rest, and that in our lives, each of us should have 1 day of quietude out of each week. 1 day of peace and consciousness and understanding and insight, joy, and secret benefits. That is a fair and proper separation. But when we try to make every day into a Sunday, then we're in trouble. We have 6 days in our own lives to get out and do things. And the seventh day is rest, which really tells us that about 1/7 of our time should be devoted, perhaps, to some type of special religious observance. The other 6/7 should be devoted to living our religion out in the world and doing things. We should be able to prove our faith in our labors and not in our isolations. I do not find, and from experience and from reports that we get every day, that groups of people who try to get away from it all ever get very far. We find that if 4 people go off and form a group by themselves, there will be civil war within 6 months. People cannot do it. They're not supposed to do it. They are supposed to have a time set apart for religious observance, perhaps a time of quiet peace for self-analysis, and an effort to restore our relationship with the infinite, which we all need. But if this is exaggerated too much and becomes a continuous process, it ultimately means that trying to get in touch with God, we lose touch with ourselves, our world, our society, and our families. We have to be practical in these things. And that means that most of the time, if we are not gainfully employed, because we have to be, we should be usefully employed doing things that help. For after all, the highest form of the religious life is service. There is no form of religion that is a substitute for serving each other in the name of the divine love. Just to love ourselves, love a few who agree with us, or go and constantly pray for divine insight, these things never have worked. The thing that works is to make a continuous religious experience out of practical usefulness, to go out and help other people in trouble, to go out and spread knowledge and help, to bring joy to the young, consolation to the old, and to constantly build into our own lives and hearts the joy of bringing joy to others. This is really the beginning of our religious life. It is the most important part of it. And without that, we are not very useful. To do this successfully, it is necessary for the person to mingle with other people, to gain insight into their interests, to learn arts, crafts, and trades by which we can create a link with other people, and advance every type of useful knowledge. The first person who comes to us may be a bricklayer. The second may be a schoolteacher. The third may be a disillusioned minister. The fourth may be an artist who is having trouble with his techniques. Another is a broken home. Another is a child without parental guidance. All of these things come to us. And those things that come to us, we must meet. And the only way we can meet them is to understand life ourselves, to know how these people feel, to know what they have gone through, to know the problems that press upon them. And knowledge is based upon experience and upon facts. Therefore, if we really want to serve the spiritual mystery of life with full hope and full devotion, we must become as learned as possible in the practical services of each other. We must all have some way of contributing to the common good. And this is the basis of our happiness, it is the basis of our health, and it is the basis of our religion. Religion is finally and inevitably the continuing reminding of ourselves and others of the divine love and the divine plan. Religion is not something that is limited to a church. Religion is something that is unlimited. It is useful in every part of life. And the greatest sermon, the greatest meditation, is that which is devoted to the service of others. So in kindness and in service, and in a generous forgetting of ourselves in the name of God, we may find what we seek. For if we try to save our lives, we shall lose them. But when we lose our lives in the service of God, we have life everlasting. And in our service is our religion. In our service, we use everything that we know and can learn, and we learn more every day so that we can be more useful. Realizing that the highest form that we have of religion is service, and that service demands the greatest possible area of personal experience. We must know all we can about as much as we can, as many different circumstances. We must view them all with patience, love, kindness, and thoughtfulness. And we must be prepared to meet the needs of other persons on their grounds, not on whatever prejudice we may have. So by becoming useful people, becoming pens in the hands of the ready writer, we serve others. We unfold our own religion, and because of our instinct to help others, we become more universally learned for our own good. The more we learn, the more we can live what we learn, and the more we share it with others. This, in fact, is the importance. We must diversify because we must serve. And the more different areas we have to call upon of knowledge, the better we can serve. Well, I guess that's all for today.